And I think that the way in which you guys navigate sports, the way that you navigate life, the way that you navigate each other is in this thing of trying to raise a family, which is so just like laden with pitfalls and failures. You just constantly hit walls.
Yeah.
You guys do it with this like integrity and honesty. Like you're so honest about everything, and nothing is sugar coated. Nothing is, but it's always so just steeped in love. And you see it in everything, in every move every one of you guys makes.
Whew.
And I'm just so in awe of it. And it's really why, like, for like, you're like who I wanted to kind of talk to more than anyone else, on camera or off, like you and Ben, you know. And so I don't know, I guess like what is like,
I have to
what is,
stop you right there and say that's like the best compliment I've ever received.
it's
Like
just
that,
honest.
that's
It's
just
not
like
even
when you like to be seen as what the like true intent of your heart is. You know what I mean? It's one thing to be seen for what you've been through or what you're trying to accomplish or what you have accomplished. But, you know, we don't always voice the intent of our heart. And especially when it comes to raising our family, like the thing that's most sacred to us. And so to be seen for the thing that is the most important to Ben and I, like, is just the whole point, right?
how would you tell the story of your family?
That's a great question because it really depends on the starting point. Ben and I have been married, and I think this is helpful too because you're like, how do I do introductions? Well, that can be generally pretty easy for you because the people you're usually interviewing need no introduction, right? And so here, for a large part, you know, or people are, if they're not familiar with them, they're familiar with their story. And you and I were joking because, well, I was joking and you were like, no, you're the perfect fit. And I'm like, I am definitely not your typical podcast guest. Like, I'm dying to see where this goes. And I messaged Chase and I'm like, so outline, question, anything? And he's like, no, we're just going to wing it. And I'm like, that is John.
Fucking it.
So here we go.
Yeah,
like,
fucking it.
he makes it very easy to talk to.
I hope so.
In answering that question, and Ben and I have been married for, gosh, it's going to be 20 years this year.
Wow.
I may be exaggerating. We've been together for a long time,
Yeah.
longer than we've been apart. And we definitely have one of those could be a cheesy rom-com like romances where he was exactly my type and not even my type a little bit. And I wasn't going to date and I was in college and he was a little bit older and I saw him and instantly it was like, great, I'm going to marry this guy. We hadn't even talked yet. And I knew. And we
You said
dated.
he saw you sweeping up at
Yes.
UCSB.
I was a janitor. I mean, it was called a facilities coordinator,
Yeah.
but I mopped up vomit at
Okay.
UCSB.
There you go.
And his brother was a basketball coach there, and he was there for the summer being a camp counselor for basketball. And I saw him, and it was just instant. And we ended up going out like for the week that he was there because he didn't live in California, and then he left, and I was never going to see him again. I saw him again, and that turned into like this 2-year long distance relationship that was dramatic and romantic and all of the things until I gave him the ultimatum, was like, either move here or this is it.
Mm-hmm.
And it was it. He was like, all right, it's it. And we broke up, and the feeling of like life without him.
Yeah.
And I remember I was like, I'd grown up an atheist, not like my personal choice, not my parents. And my faith just started to unravel and open up after I met him. And I just became a lot more open and started praying a lot more. And at one point when we were broken up and I just thought everything was over because I knew I was going to marry him, I remember saying a prayer and just saying like, God, please just like, let me have him. I promise you, like, you know, that whole bargaining we do with God where we're like, if you just do this, like, especially when we're younger.
Totally.
So here I am, 21, and I'm making a deal with God that's like, if you just give me Ben, I promise you we will survive anything you throw at us. Wow. Like, life can be as hard as you need it to be, and we will survive it so long as I have him, okay? Like, deal. And of course, you know, 20 years later, I remember that bargain because God held up his end. Okay, I gave him to you. But just there's such a big part of Ben and I that we both just have this confirmation that, you know, before this life even, we made a deal with each other that we were going to do this with each other, that we were going to come down here, we were going to find each other, we were going to get married and we were going to tackle whatever life threw at us. And so I think that sort of like bigger perspective has got us through
Hmm.
a lot of the unexpected trials, or been helped us be more patient with each other, because it has not, like, what life has thrown at us has not been easy on our marriage by any means. And we're so far from perfect, and we're working on it every day. But we had our first son, and I was working at the time, and Ben was working. And when I was pregnant, I got hyperemesis, which I don't know if you know what that is. It's basically like you can't get out of bed, you're throwing up all the time, and pregnancy is absolutely miserable. So I quit my job and I stayed home and I threw up all the time, and I fell into like this deep hole of depression. And then my son was born, and he was the best thing to ever happen to me. And I had not postpartum depression, but I had postpartum anxiety. And I just lived in constant fear that I was going to lose him.
Hmm.
And it was mostly this constant fear that if something happens to him, I will not be able to go on. And didn't want people to hold him, and I didn't want to leave the house. And I would like check his breathing 1,000 times a night. And it was obsessive and it was all consuming. And it took months before I realized